the thing about drugs, right? It is like poison like that. Okay, so when you don't stop it now, it is going to spread, and then it's going to like affect a lot more things in the country lah.
Alright guys, so recently Shanmugam was interviewed on a show on BBC called Hard Talk. So the presenter of this show is known to be very tough on his interviewees. He will ask very difficult questions, put you in tough spots. And he wants to see how you react to it. So on the interview with Shanmugam, there were 6 things that were discussed. Let me very quickly and very briefly run through 5 of them, and then we delve deeper into one of it. Okay, so the first thing that was discussed, Stephen, the presenter of the show, he accused Singapore of having political control. So basically, the PAP is dominating the opposition. And the way Shanmugam actually tackled this was he said voting is fair. Everyone has a chance to express their votes. And the sway, at least in the last GE, was somewhere around 60-40. So it's not like, really lopsided. This is based on what the people are voting. So if they are free to vote how they want to vote, and the results are reflecting this way, you cannot really fault them for having some kind of dominance.
Exactly.
The second point will be something we will delve deeper into later. So this is with regards to the death penalty. The next point is section 377A. Basically what Stephen put to Shanmugam was, by keeping the law in place, you are encouraging a culture of hate, culture of homophobia, and a culture of shame. So there is truth to this but the way Shanmugam actually tackled it was, he needs to look at how the public sentiment is like, how the people are feeling about certain things. So they are having deep consultations with people, including people from the LGBTQ community. So based on their consultations, based on what they have discussed, they will see if there's a need to repeal 377A, which means there's a chance in the future it will be repealed.
The process gonna probably take very long.
Probably. They want to really sift through all the information.
But it seems like Singapore is somewhere like a quarter in really. Or maybe even halfway, I would say . Yeah.
But honestly, right, even though the 377A is in place, right, Singapore have never enforced such law.
That's true.
So it's just to, just to appease the people. Yeah.
So let's see whether or not in the future, based on their result, they're going to take it off. But regardless whether they keep it in place or they take it off, what we can rest assured is they are actually looking into the matter. So the decision will be a reflection of the people. Let's hope at least. Okay, the next point that was raised is racism in Singapore. And what Stephen threw to Shanmugam was, you can see systemic racism in Singapore. It comes in the form of like harder for minorities to get jobs, harder for minorities to get a room for rental, these kind of things. And while Shanmugam acknowledges that racism exists in Singapore, what he said was, in these situations that you have raised, you may not have gotten your facts right. Because if you look at the people who are looking at room rentals, they are mostly foreigners. 93% of Singaporeans actually have their own homes. So maybe his statistics are not exactly right. The next thing that they discussed was press freedom. So FICA was raised, and then Stephen also said that Reporters Without Border, which is a private NGO, they rank Singapore as 160.
So low. So low.
No press freedom in Singapore.
No, I see below who.
That's a good point. So this was exactly what Shanmugam threw back. If we are at 160, let's look at some of the countries above us. You have countries like Myanmar, you have countries like South Sudan and all. And in no situation, will a reporter feel this country is safer to go and report in than Singapore. So he dismissed it.
Yeah, it's not that accurate based on the statistics.
It's a kind of a biased stance.
Yeah. Singapore likes to pride ourselves in first for everything, right? Then this one is like 160. It's like going all the way down. Like, what's going on?
So embarrassed.
Okay, so the last point that was discussed between the two is the US-China conflict and where Singapore is on this conflict. So one thing that Stephen said is, when we place sanctions on Russia and stuff, we seem to be taking a stance with the US, because this is Washington's stance also. So he asked, are you siding the US instead of China? And Shanmugam said that we are not taking sides. We are just looking at what actions are proper, what actions are not, and then we are judging based on that. We have even gone against the US on certain things.
Fair.
Okay, so those are some of the points that were discussed during the interview. What I want to discuss actually is the second point, which they delve quite deep in, and we can go even deeper, which is with regards to the death penalty. Before we discuss this, a friend of ours actually sent us a video. I want to show you this video. Watch it, let me know what are your thoughts.
Singapore is very well known around the world for its, many would say, draconian criminal code, and particularly when it comes to drugs, narcotics, and the bringing of drugs into Singapore. You have a mandatory death penalty for that particular crime. Do you have any doubts at all that that is the right policy?
I don't have any doubts. Capital punishment is one aspect of a whole series of measures that we have to deal with drug abuse problem. It's imposed on drug traffickers, and it's imposed because there is clear evidence that it's a serious deterrent for would-be drug traffickers. Trafficker wants to make money. He, is damaging the lives of drug users, their families, damaged, often seriously destroyed. And look at the context. We are talking about saving lives. What do I mean? In the 1990s, we were arresting about 6,000 people per year. 30 years later, today, there are more drugs around the region. Singapore is wealthier. Afghanistan and Myanmar are among the largest producers of drugs in the world. We are a logistics center. We would be completely swamped. The UNODC said that, this place is swimming in meth, and a record haul of 1 billion meth tablets was seized in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, you keep painting this situation. But the fact is that one of the most high-profile cases that your system has dealt with in the last few months is that of an individual from Malaysia, Naga Enthren Damalingam, who was caught with the equivalent of 3 tablespoonfuls of heroin as he entered Singapore. He has an IQ of 69. Medical experts say that represents intellectual disability. And after more than a decade on death row, you hanged him. Does that seem proportionate and compassionate to you?
You've got your facts wrong. The courts found that he had the working of a criminal mind, and he made a deliberate, purposeful, calculated decision to make money to bring the drugs in.
He was mentally impaired, Minister. He was mentally impaired. He had an IQ of 69.
Psychiatrists called by the defense agreed and confirmed that he was not intellectually disabled.
Are you prepared to see your state's reputation sink because of the draconian decisions you insist on making?
I think the key thing is the lives of Singaporeans and protecting Singaporeans. People focus on, and the BBC focuses on, this one person. You ran 4 articles from October of last year to March of this year. One of them was a headline, overtaking the Ukraine war. But you haven't run any article on what the UNODC talked about, the severe situation in Southeast Asia. And what about the thousands of lives that are at stake from drug trafficking? We're not even talking about Mexico.
You made the case. You made the case, Minister.
Let me just make this point, Mr. Sacker. I think the media reporting and all the things that you've quoted make this point, that a single hanging of a drug trafficker, to misquote a well-known quote, a single hanging of a drug trafficker is a tragedy. 1 million deaths from drug abuse is a statistic. I think that's what this shows.
So that's your frame. Your frame is that you are saving lives because illegal drugs cost lives.
And I can prove it.
No, fine.
I can prove it.
I want you, so that's your frame for that particular aspect of your social policy. What is the justification for it? No, let's move on now. Let's move on from drugs to another aspect of your social policy.
Okay, so that's the video. Not too bad, Shanmugam was quite articulate. He was like a thesaurus. 5 synonyms of deliberate, calculated, all come out very well. Okay. But what are your thoughts with regards to this video?
Okay, so while he was talking about drug laws, right, he also mentioned about the international standards set by the UN, okay, which consists of like letting people have the rights to live, living in free of cruelty, abuse, and I think fear also. Okay, so I feel that yes, that is a good benchmark and a good policy the UN has set. Okay, but I also believe that a country should have the rights to decide based on what is best for its own society.
Okay.
Yeah, so let me bring these two examples out. Okay, so if let's just say a country that doesn't strictly comply to these international standards, okay, for example, Russia and Ukraine, okay, the UN didn't come in and solve their problem, okay. So the second example, okay, let's bring it locally lah. So if Singapore, okay, strictly follows that international standard, and we suffer some of the consequences, will UN come in and solve our problem?
Not my problem.
Okay, I just gonna say this When I watch this video, right, I don't like the interviewers. I really don't like the interviewer because I feel that he is very, very biased.
Okay.
Okay, like such a big organization like BBC, right? You would assume that when they ask a minister come for an interview, right, they will hold a very neutral stance. However, when interviewing Shanmugam, he has a very, very biased stance. Like instead of asking him like, what are some justification of having such laws in place in Singapore? Instead he say, oh, is your country ready to face the repercussion of insisting to enforce such draconian law? Like he really hold this bias stance in place, right, and then try to enforce his views on people that watch this interview. Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, I think to build on that point also, right, I find that, okay, you know how people, when they read news, right, they always just look at the headline and then they will deduce the whole story based on the headline.
Yeah,
they will assume, right? So for this host, right, I think he's doing exactly the same thing. He was saying something like an IQ of 69. Okay, so the question really is, right, did the IQ really matter? Because at that point of his act, right, he knows exactly what he was doing, like what Shanmugam actually has mentioned. So the one thing that I realized he was doing very harshly, right, he was really downplaying the whole situation. He brought up there were 3 tablespoons of heroin. When he said 3 tablespoons, right, the fact that actually these 3 tablespoons can feed 500 people in the whole entire week, but he's saying that, it's just 3 tablespoons. It's actually a huge amount, So,
So because when you put it like 3 tablespoons, it
It
sounds
feels so
okay, like
small.
something very minute.
Yeah,
bring
that's
to
why.
500 families.
For one whole week, So I feel that, like, he was really downplaying it.
And yeah, so the thing about drugs, right, it is like poison like that. Okay, so when you don't stop it now, it is going to spread, and then it's going to like affect a lot more things in the country lah. Okay, like the social fabric lah, the progression of the country, if you like bring it all the way in long-term sense. So let's just bring in Netherlands as an example. They started out as you can smoke weed there. Okay, weed is legalized there now.
Yeah, it's
okay?
like a paradise for drug lovers.
Yeah.
Like you see in the show, while people go Amsterdam, smoke weed, get high.
Yeah,
enjoy,
especially Amsterdam. Like even in like secondary school, okay, when they legalize weed, I myself as a secondary student, I know that okay, Amsterdam is the place to go if you want to go
it's
for
the
drugs.
haven for drugs. Yeah.
But okay, back then, okay, they have all these legalization of the weed and everybody is talking about it, happy. But look at them now. Okay, they are in a situation right where drug lords right run the society.
Yep.
Yeah, and supplier is affecting the country's laws and whatnot. Yeah, so
In fact, they're killing people also. They're controlling a lot of things.
yeah, so do we really want to be like Netherlands or not? You know?
Because like what you mentioned, like it's like a poison. Before you can put a clamp on it, it's gonna spread beyond your control already.
And then if we don't decide what to do now, if we reach that point, there's nothing much that we can do.
See the big picture.
Okay, I want to ask you guys one final question. During the interview, right, the presenter threw this question to Shanmugam. He said, "Is this how you want to present Singapore to the world?" And it made me wonder lah, because when you are a national leader, right, especially when you are one of the senior leaders of the country, this is definitely a consideration. Okay, because you want to run the nation, you want everything to be proper, but you also want to be seen in the eyes of the public, the global audience, the global public, to be a nation that people have trust in, people have a good impression of. Then they'll come and do business in your nation and stuff. So I want to ask you guys, which do you think is more important? Making decisions that will benefit the people, or building a good impression of the country to the rest of the world? If you can only choose one.
Wow, I think the former.
So making good decisions for your people.
Yes. You know, one of our Singapore policy, I don't know, I studied social studies, I really like this policy about do what is right and not what is popular. This one I learned in social studies one. See, you're supposed to do what is right for your people. Don't care about what other people say. Don't all the popular opinions. Don't care. You just do what is right, benefit Singapore progress, and you look at how Singapore is now compared to all the other countries that is part of the British colonial rule before that. Singapore is where it is today, right? Because of our laws, because of our leaders. Yeah.
What do you guys think?
I feel the former also. Okay, because I just say the long lasting effect lah. Okay, if you do the former, you do it for the people. Your latter, where your impression right, will come about through later in the far future. Okay, I mean if you do the latter and build your impression first, right, your latter your former is gonna fail. You get what I mean? Because you're so busy. Yeah, possibly. Okay, but I feel that because when you focus on the first one, your second one will come later. So why not focus on that? Yeah, I mean, yeah.
What about you?
Okay, for me, right, I would choose the first one also. Because, right, you know, there's a saying, right, whatever you want to do, right, you do from the within first. So if you want improvement for the country, right, you also do from within. Like same for personal development, for individual as well. So if let's say, right, you do within the country, you grow within the country, right, it will spread. Because people or other countries will start to see what you're doing to the people. And I think that is the main reason why a lot of investors are coming in, because they trust what Singapore has built for the people.
Okay, all your answers are valid, all your answers are fair. But it's also the reason why you all will never be PM.
Oh,